The African swine fever outbreak, or more commonly known as the ASF outbreak, affected multiple backyard farms in the Philippines since last September of 2019, specifically in provinces such as Antipolo, where the reported cases were significantly greater. The disease threatens the 260 billion swine industry in the Philippines due to the fear-mongering directed to both consumers and producers in the swine industry. The industry provides livelihood for millions of Filipino families, as small backyard raisers comprise roughly two-thirds of the industry. The researchers visited Barangay Kupang, Antipolo, Rizal, as the recent ASF outbreak has caused fear-mongering among the residents. It was notable that they buried roughly 1,000 pigs, regardless of their health, and refused consumption of ASF-positive pigs. Ideally, subsequent to the dissemination of news that the African swine fever cannot afflict humans, Filipinos would not experience fear. But in reality, the information was misunderstood, which caused fear-mongering in communities such as in Barangay Kupang. This study aims to characterize fear-mongering as experienced by the people of Barangay Kupang in Antipolo, Rizal. As such, the center of our study is the nature of fear-mongering. Through this, we can create an effective dissemination plan for information catered specifically for the purpose of the audience's understanding.
This research is phenomenological qualitative approach because, as per Creswell, the fundamental goal of a phenomenological approach is to arrive at a description of the nature of the particular phenomenon, in this case, fear-mongering. A non-numerical purposive method of data sampling was utilized in which participants were interviewed in a conversational manner. The Colysis method of data analysis was utilized in analyzing the data, wherein the researchers went over the transcript repeatedly to ensure that all the important information from the co-researchers will be extracted. This method allowed the researchers to reveal emergent themes and their interwoven relationships. As a lived experience, fear-mongering is analyzed using a systematic empirical inquiry into meaning. Aforementioned, it is inquiry into meaning as researchers try to understand how others make sense of their experience. Thus, we will study the fear-mongering as a lived experience by the people of Barangay Kupang, Rizal.
Fear-mongering can be deeply rooted to 5 different triggering factors that provide a wider characterization on the lived experience, with each one representing a component of the greater whole that is fear-mongering. Each triggering factor was then split into codes that differ in how they specifically articulate the lived experience as a community-wide event, and the experience of being on the deep end of fear-mongering. The 5 triggering factors are time, location and distance, credibility, perception, and authority. The sum of all these triggering factors and fragments make up fear-mongering as a human experience.
Fear-mongering, as triggered by time, can be divided into 6 different characteristics, and these are concern to help, false coalescence, reluctance to mishap effect, inceptive shock, marketplace trepidation, and crucial realization to facts. Concern to health is when fear-mongering made people more concerned and worried more about their health and well-being. Next is false coalescence, when fear-mongering may make people believe that unrelated events are connected to each other, relating one to the other and finding some causality between them. Reluctance to mishap effect is wherein people are more motivated to act for individual safety and health, and would rather avoid risks to their health. Inceptive shock is when fear-mongering is characterized by its short prevalence and duration towards people. Fear-mongering is also caused by market trepidation, wherein the co-researcher's buyers are agitated upon buying its products due to the outbreak that may also infect the pork co-researcher is using. Though it would not take long for fear-mongering to run its important note that fear-mongering run its course, but eventually, people would just suddenly cease to be affected by it due to the passing of time and the crucial realization to facts concerning the nature of fear-mongering that comes with it.
In terms of the triggering factor that is location and distance, there is a commonality between the statements of the co-researchers, as a set place and a set area parameter was mentioned by the residents of Barangay Kupang, Rizal. Marikina was a reoccurring place wherein the vendors would put their trust onto, as a certain market in the area was known to only harbor safe, ASF-free swines. Thus, vendors and consumers would only accept raw pork from Marikina, that as long as their food came from there, health would not be compromised and ASF would not be a concern. This creates a purchasing placement bias, characterizing fear-mongering by its prevalence only on a set location, limiting itself and creating a sort of safe haven place from fear-mongering, as stated by one swine vendor.
Saka ang tinitinda ko, Marikina, strict lang.
Also important to the discussion of location and distance are the numbers and figures that were mentioned. Usually in kilometers, the specific distance describes the radius of the area of non-effect or the illusory bubble that fear-mongering creates. This illusory bubble encompasses an area safe from ASF and free from any fear-mongering. Perception as a triggering factor is crucial to this research because the co-researchers describe their fear brought upon by fear-mongering as affected by ignorance, lack of awareness, and pre-existent human experiences. As perception indicated fear, it is recalled to have three different codes: assuage to infirmity, amiss-tattling, and fallacious credence. Assuage to infirmity is one of the co-researchers' perception-induced fears, as stated by co-researcher 4.
Kumakain naman.
The co-researcher stated that her son was going through dialysis because of his kidney failure. She was going through a very hard time about her son, and then there goes the African swine fever that made her anxious about the food that they are consuming. Amiss-tattling is also a perception-induced fear, as fear-mongering characterized wherein the rumors or tattling of the people brought fear to the others, thinking that the pork products being sold are affected and shouldn't be eaten. The said type of perception-induced fear was stated by co-researcher 6 as,
Natatakot yung mga tao dahil sabi nila may sakit.
this is when the co-researcher believes the falsity of one's claim regarding the outbreak, concretized by their beliefs through several people. As a whole, fear-mongering, as induced by perception, is affected by ignorance, lack of awareness, pre-existing human experiences. Whenever something happens in a community, the local government will eventually be involved, and this would create fear-mongering as triggered by authority. Fear-mongering is heavily influenced by the governance and guidelines given to the citizens. Co-researcher 5 said that,
Pinagbabawalan po ng barangay na mag-alaga po ng baboy po dito po sa barangay Kupang po.
this event caused forceful swine killings despite the fact that not all of them were sick. This is dogmatic persuasion as an authority-induced fear-mongering, wherein authorities amidst a crisis create illogical standards. Co-researcher 6 also said that,
Pag bumili ka doon, pag walang katakang baboy mo, huhulihin nila kasi baka may sakit. Huhulihin ka at saka kukunin nila talaga sa'yo. Kaya yung binibili namin ng baboy, kailangan may permit. Binibigay din sa amin para pag tinatanungkan kung saan kami kumukuha ng baboy, pakilala namin.
this is recoiling scarper, wherein fear-mongering is characterized through following authoritarian guidelines in order to avoid social consequences induced by the disobedience or disregarding of issued orders of the authorities. The last is credibility-triggered fear-mongering, wherein the co-researchers ask and wait for quality and approval in order to be sure of the products that they will consume. A type of credibility-indicated fear-mongering is dependence to homologation, as said by co-researcher 3.
Mga nabibili naman namin baboy, with inspection siya.
Dependence to homologation is when the co-researcher only relies or depends on the homologation or approval of an official that the pork products are not affected by the said epidemic. Co-researcher 2 also said that,
Hindi kasi nag-check din naman kami sa quality, diba? Kasi may quality control naman.
which is conditional reliancy, wherein fear-mongering is characterized by the reliance of the consumer on the quality or the different standards for a pork product to be safe. To summarize the response of the co-researchers, outbreaks often generate fear the moment it begins to spread, but it gradually diminishes as time passes. The ASF outbreak affected the residents of Barangay Kupang which made them more aware and conscious of the meat they were consuming and utilizing. The phenomenon also affected the vendors whose business involved the selling of pork products. The co-researchers also said that the sales of pork and other animal-based products greatly declined because customers feared that consuming pork products infected with the ASF virus may greatly affect their health. With all of these in mind, fear-mongering is a temporary phenomenon defined by time, location and distance, credibility, perception, and authority. Albeit the occurrence of the fear-mongering amidst the ASF outbreak was short-lived, various effects were experienced in the livelihoods and daily lives of the people in Barangay Cupang, Antipolo, Rizal. Therefore, proper dissemination of clear and relevant information with validation is important in cases of fear-mongering situations. In this way, fear-mongering amidst the biological epidemic such as ASF will be avoided in the future.